The alarm shrieked through the Galactic Coalition outpost with an urgency that made even the most seasoned warriors flinch. Commander Victor, a towering Krolian with scales like burnished steel, stood in the center of the nursery chamber, his 4 eyes scanning the empty enclosures with mounting dread. "Impossible," he hissed, his translator implant struggling to convey the depth of his panic. The security protocols were flawless. How could 3 Rexian cubs simply vanish? Around him, personnel scrambled in controlled chaos. Rexian cubs weren't ordinary children. They were the offspring of the galaxy's apex predators, beings whose adult forms could tear through starship hulls with their bare claws. Even as infants, they possessed supernatural stealth abilities and predatory instincts that had evolved over millions of years. Losing them wasn't just embarrassing. It was potentially catastrophic. "Sir, we've sealed all exits," reported Lieutenant Thresh, a multi-limbed Caraxian whose sensory antennae quivered with stress. "Nothing larger than a maintenance drone has left this sector. They must still be inside." Victor's mandibles clicked in frustration. The cubs had been entrusted to the Coalition by the Vrexian matriarch herself as a gesture of peace. If anything happened to them, the fragile alliance could shatter, plunging 3 star systems into war. "Get me security footage, now." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the nursery from multiple angles. For hours, technicians scrubbed through the recordings, finding nothing but static at the crucial moments. The cubs had simply disappeared, as if they'd phased through reality itself. "This is Rexian stealth technology at work," muttered Victor. "Even our best sensors can't track them when they don't want to be found." That's when someone mentioned the human. Ceres Hale was on patrol in Sector 7 during the disappearance window. Thresh offered hesitantly. "Should we question her?" The suggestion was met with uncomfortable silence. Humans were the Coalition's newest members, and their reputation preceded them. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest species, lacking the natural weapons or armor that most sentient races possessed. Yet somehow, impossibly, they'd earned their place among the stars through sheer stubborn audacity and an unnerving ability to befriend anything with a pulse. "Fine," Victor growled. "Bring her in." Cerise Hale arrived at the command center with the casual confidence that seemed to define her species. She stood barely 5.5 feet tall, her brown hair pulled into a practical ponytail, wearing the standard Coalition patrol uniform that somehow looked less official on her frame. Her dark eyes surveyed the tense room with calm curiosity. "You wanted to see me, Commander?" Victor loomed over her, using his full height advantage. 3 Rexian cubs have gone missing. You were patrolling nearby. Did you see anything unusual? Cerise's expression didn't change. Define unusual. "This is a space station with 57 different species. Yesterday, I watched a Glutarian try to photosynthesis under the artificial lights. This is serious, human Hale," Victor snapped. "Those cubs are dangerous. If they're loose in the station," a soft chirping sound interrupted him. Everyone froze. The noise had come from Ceres herself, or rather, from the area around her shoulders and head. Victor's eyes widened as perception caught up with reality. Perched on Ceres's right shoulder, perfectly camouflaged until that moment, was a Vrexian cub. Its chameleon-like skin had been mimicking the color and texture of her uniform so perfectly that it had been invisible. As they watched, the cub's scales rippled, revealing midnight blue fur and large, luminous eyes. "Oh," Ceres said, glancing at the cub with what could only be described as fondness. "You mean these little guys?" As if summoned by her words, 2 more cubs materialized, one draped across her other shoulder like a fuzzy scarf, and another peeking out from inside her partially unzipped jacket. The one on her right shoulder chirped again, nuzzling against her neck with a contented purr. The command center erupted into chaos. "How in the void?" Thresh began. "They're apex predators." Someone shouted, "Get them away from her before they attack." Ceres held up one hand and remarkably, the room quieted. The cub in her jacket, the smallest one, whom she somehow knew was named Drinnick, poked his head out further, his tiny fangs visible as he yawned. "They're not dangerous," Ceres said calmly. "Well, they are, but not to me. They're just babies. They got scared during the security drill this morning, all those alarms and flashing lights, and snuck out looking for somewhere quiet. And they chose..." "You?" Victor asked, incredulous. Ceres shrugged, causing the cubs to adjust their positions with practiced ease. "I found Drinnick hiding in a ventilation shaft during my patrol. He was shaking, so I picked him up. The other two must have followed his scent and just ... joined us. Impossible, Victor breathed. Vrexian cubs imprint on strength and dominance. They follow the apex predator. You're a human, you have no natural weapons, no armor, no idea what you're talking about, Cerise finished with a slight smile. She reached up to scratch behind Drinnick's ears, and the cub's purring intensified. Look, I don't know about all that predator hierarchy stuff. I just know they were scared and needed someone. So I stayed with them. We've been doing my patrol together for the past 6 hours. 6 hours? Thresh's antennae went rigid. You've been walking around the station with 3 missing Vrexian cubs on your shoulders for 6 hours? Well, yeah. Drinnick here is really curious about the hydroponics bay. And the other two loved watching the cargo ships dock through the observation windows. We made it educational. Victor stared at the human, trying to reconcile what he was seeing with everything he knew about interspecies dynamics. The cubs were completely relaxed, their body language showing absolute trust. Drinnick had even fallen asleep, his small chest rising and falling against Ceres's collarbone. How did you keep them calm? He finally asked. Ceres looked genuinely confused by the question. I just talked to them. Told them stories about Earth, sang a few songs. Drinnick really likes Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for some reason. She paused. Oh, and I shared my lunch. Turns out Vrexian cubs love peanut butter sandwiches. Who knew? You fed them human food. Victor's voice climbed an octave. Just a little. They were hungry, and the galley was closed for maintenance. Don't worry, I checked peanut butter is protein-based and compatible with their digestive systems. Mostly. Lieutenant Thresh made a choking sound. Cerise carefully lifted Drinnick from her jacket, cradling the cub like a human infant. The small Vrexian stretched, then curled into her arms, completely content. Look, I can take them back to the nursery if you want, but maybe check on the environmental settings? I think the lights are too bright and the temperature is too cold for them. On Earth, when mammals are stressed, we make their environment more comfortable. She said it so matter-of-factly, as if applying Earth mammalian care standards to the galaxy's most feared predator species was perfectly reasonable. Victor felt a headache forming behind his primary eyes, a sensation he'd been experiencing frequently since humans joined the coalition. They had this infuriating habit of ignoring established galactic wisdom and just ... doing whatever felt right. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. Fine, he said, defeated. Return them to the nursery and human Halle? Next time you find missing predator cubs, perhaps report it immediately instead of taking them on patrol? Ceres grinned, and for a moment Victor understood why the cubs had chosen her. There was something in that expression, not aggression or dominance, but an absolute, unshakable confidence that everything would be okay. It was the look of a species that had climbed to the top of their food chain not through strength, but through sheer, stubborn determination to make friends with everything that moved. Sure thing, Commander, she said, already heading toward the door with 3 apex predators draped across her like accessories. Come on, guys, let's get you home. And Drinnick? No more playing hide and seek in the ventilation system. You gave everyone a scare, the cub chirped apologetically. As the door closed behind her, Thresh turned to Victor. Sir, should we update the security protocols? Victor watched the human disappear down the corridor on the monitors, the 3 deadliest infants in the sector following her like devoted puppies. No, he said slowly. But add a note to the Vrexian matriarch's report. Cubs are safe and well cared for. Human Halle has been designated as auxiliary caretaker. Recommend increased peanut butter rations. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear Cerise singing softly, and the cubs chirping along in harmony. Humans, he thought. They were going to revolutionize childcare across the entire galaxy, and they didn't even realize it.